Alright, so let's look at some examples on how to do some calculations in Excel for the week. So we have this set of data. We have manufacturers, we have models, sales for March 2011, and sales up to March 2010. And let's say we want to find descriptive statistics and draw some histograms to start with. Okay, so the descriptive statistics we can look at here are just basically on those two items. All we can do descriptive statistics on are actual numbers. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight those, and then I'll go to data, and then I'll go to data analysis. And they have this feature here called descriptive statistics. So I click OK. Now, sometimes it'll pull it in and put that there like I did this time. Sometimes it won't. So you kind of have to just pay attention to what happens there. Now it's in columns, and we have labels in the first row. So we put those, and that's just so we know what the data is when we get it out. And we're going to want summary statistics. Sometimes you have to click that on, sometimes not. Depending on what kind of calculations you are, sometimes you want the confidence level for the mean as well. So we want a 95% confidence level, and so we might want to calculate that. And so let's put this in starting right there. Okay, so put it in H. So when we do that, it should automatically do everything for us. So these are the descriptive statistics that we really are going to worry about. So when sometimes it'll ask you for descriptive statistics, this is the minimum that you should do. Of course, there's others. There's the quartiles. You have the first quartile. Well, I guess we just do quartile 1, quartile 3. We have the min, the max, the quartiles, the median. So that's the second quartile. So if you know that, that's a good thing. Quartile 2, and the mean, standard deviation, skewness. So skewness, if we're looking at these are both positive. So this is going to be skew right. Okay, and so those are some of the items you can look at. And quartile, that's just going to be equal quartile. And then you want to use the .exc. And let's say we want to do this one. And we want the first quartile, so we hit enter. And so that'll give us the first quartile. Now let's say we want to have the third quartile instead. Then all we'd have to do is type in a 3 here, and that would give us the third quartile. Now if we want to put it into this set of data, it's not going to work right because we have this extra column in here, but all we have to do really is just change what we highlight, and so we can just highlight that column, and then we can do the same thing for this one, and we can highlight that column. And so that'll give us our quartiles. And there's, of course, there's some other descriptive statistics, but these are the minimum ones you should look for when you're actually doing calculations. So this is going to be for the sales of the March column, and this is going to be for the sales of the March 2010. So that's 11 and 10. Now histograms, how do you do a histogram? Well, you're going to highlight the data. Okay, and let's say we want to do March 2011. So then we're going to insert. And we go over here and we choose all charts, and we look for histogram, and that's what we're going to choose, and that would give us our histogram for the sales of 2011. So if we're doing this, we could say that's the 2011. Okay. We could also do the next one, which would be the 2010, and again we're just going to do insert, and we'll go to charts, histogram, choose the right one, and then we'll have to pull this all the way over. Now we have the extra thing open over there, and this is going to be 2010. Okay. Now some things here, these are supposed to be touching, so really we want this solid line around them, and that makes it so then it looks like they're not touching. When you do that, you also want to make sure the gap width is at 0, because that's really going to be a key there. Here again we can put that solid line in there, and then that gets rid of the gap. Okay, and so that would be how we get some descriptive statistics, well as histograms. And with the histograms, we can kind of both see they're both skewed to the right as well, and that's kind of what we're seeing here as well. We had a positive skewness, so that would be skewed to the right. Alright, so let's do some other kind of calculations. So again, we're going to use the same data, And this time what we want to do is maybe we want to look at the manufacturer and find the frequency for that manufacturer, the total sales for that manufacturer for 2011 as well as 2010. Now, just because it's harder to type all this in a certain time limit, I went ahead and did the first one for us. And so we're going to do a count if. And so what I did is first I found all the different items here, and the best way to do that sometimes is to go copy this, and then we can paste it over here, and then we can do that column and look at it, and we can sort from smallest to largest, and I just want that column only. And then I can see, okay, Chevrolet, Ford, Honda, and then that's how I found the ones I'm going to use. I just took the original data that I'm going to look for the frequencies, and I sorted it, and that gives me my list of manufacturers. So now how to do the frequency? Well, I'm going to look in this original column and see how many Chevrolets there are. Well, how do I do that? Well, I'm going to do a count if. And if it is that value, then it's going to count 1. If it's again that value, is going to count 2. Now with small data sets like 20, that's not very bad. If we were doing 5,000 or 20,000, because we're looking at big data sets in this kind of class, we would want to use countif functions with the data sets with the dollar signs. And what those dollar signs do is it sets that data set from the A2 down to the A21, and no matter if I copy it into a cell over here or down here, over here, it's always going to use that data set. Now it's going to change this one to what I'm going to be looking at. In this case, G2 is the Chevrolet. So it's going to count in that column from A2 to A21 and look for the number or the name Chevrolet. Okay. So how many are there? Well, when you hit enter, it gives you 3. Now the cool thing is now I can use the function control D and it copies it down. And like I said, if we put those dollar signs for the A and the 2 and the A and the 21, it's going to keep that data set always as the A2 to A21. And so no matter how many we go down, we're always looking at that original data set. Now what we're looking at changes. Here it's G2, and I better escape here, otherwise it'll change it. If we go down here, it's G3, which means we're looking at Ford. Then G4 is going to be the Honda, then Hyundai, Kia, Mazda, and so on. And it counts all of those. Okay. Next, we want to find the total sales for Chevrolet on 2011. And what we're going to do is we're going to sum if. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're going to look at, again, that same data set, the Honda down all the way down to the 21. And we're going to set that constant. And we're going to look at and make sure it's the Chevrolet because it's that row. And then if it meets all those criteria, it's a Chevrolet, it's from that first column, and then we're going to count in the data from the sales here based on this column. So we're going to set that column constant too. And so basically, if it's a Chevrolet in this first column, and it's Chevrolet based on this, then we're going to count that number and add it up. We're going to sum it up together, only when it's the Chevrolet. Okay, and so when we do that, it gives us Chevrolet had a frequency of 3. The total sales for 2011 was 51,715. And we can do the same thing here. We can control D, and that gives us now, again, we're keeping the manufacturer column and the sales column for 2011 constant, but now we've moved to the Ford. And then we can move to the Honda and so on all the way down. Now we can do that again for the 2010, and the only thing we change is the column here. So we use the 2010 column instead of the 2011 like we did here. And so basically then we're just going to control D down there again. And then that gives us our frequency, our total sales for that vehicle manufacturer for 2011 and then for 2010. So now we need to do an analysis. So what does that tell us? Well, here basically what we're going to do is we're going to look at our frequencies and see which is the best. So it looks like, the higher frequencies look like the highest one is 3. So this would be, it looks like tied for first because there's several of them that have 3. So we could say that's tied for first, tied for first, tied for first, and tied for first. So those would be first. And now with 1, that would be tied for last. because there's several of them with one, so that's tied for last. That one is, and that one is. Okay. So that's going to be kind of how we analyze the frequency. Then those kind of the middle two, Honda and Hyundai, they're in the middle two. So if you want to analyze that, saying that's they're the second kind of middle ground, that's fine. Now total sales. Let's look for the best and the worst. Now we could use functions and find max and do that. But for the small data set we have here, we can see that it looks like 8 is the biggest, so that's the best, and the smallest looks to be that one, which would be, so that'd be the worst. Okay, and so for 2010, looks like that one's the worst here too, and probably then Toyota would be the best again. Yes. Okay, and so that gives us our best. So that's how we can do the frequency analysis here, and the count ifs and sum ifs and so on. Okay. Now the only other thing we can do is correlation. So let's correlate the data between the 2011 and 2010. So how we're going to do that is just equals correlate, and that's going to be our correl. Click on that. Highlight our first column. Now a nice thing with correlation, it doesn't matter which column would be X, which column would be Y if we're doing it by that. And so that would be our correlation. Now it does matter though if how we choose this. So if we want to plot these, we can say, okay, we want to plot, the first column is going to be X usually. That's how it works in Excel's. First column's X, second column's Y. So if we want the X column to be 2011, the Y column to be 2010, that's how we would do it. If not, we'd have to swap those and then select the data that way. But let's say we want to do the calculation or the plot that way and do a scatter plot. So we can go over here, do an XY scatter. We have something like that. And that's the best one because this one is not going to be an XY scatter how we're looking at it, and this is, so we'll do that. And so that's going to be our scatter plot for the sales. Again, this is going to be 2011, this is going to be 2010. So you'll want to go ahead and label your axes, of course. And so this is the correlation. Okay. Now if we wanted to set a trend line, we could do that. We want it to be linear. And sometimes it's best to put that equation on the chart and our R squared, which is our coefficient of determination. Maybe I can talk. And so that gives us what we have here. Okay. And so that's kind of the different things that you'll be looking at, especially on your activity for this first module, on the different items you might be asked to do. And so hopefully this will help you be able to do all the different kind of problems within there. Hope it helps. Thanks.